Join us on Entertainment Tonight.
This evening at 7:30.
This is your 24-hour news source.
This is NewsCenter 7's first edition for November 8th, 1990. Police say he has a history of mental problems and a background of problems with the police. And yet this man, described as a walking time bomb, was armed and confronted police today. We were on the scene and we'll have a report.
More Ohio troops are on their way to the Middle East. Family members gave them a tearful send-off today at Wright Pat. And tonight's forecast will be a cold one.
Can you say 26? Tonight's forecast and the day's news ahead on NewsCenter's first edition.
Live from the award-winning Miami Valley News Leader, the latest news with Ken Jefferson and Cheryl McHenry, Ted Ryan's AccuWeather, and sports with Mike Hartsock. Now, NewsCenter 7's first edition.
Good evening. Police say a man with mental problems, armed with a shotgun, threatened officers and citizens today in Mad River Township.
The suspect is well known by police for assault, telephone harassment, and illegal hunting.
Today's incident is raising questions about Dennis Cook and how he can be stopped from hurting himself and others as well. Becky Grimes is on the scene. Becky, tell us what happened.
Well, a chase in the woods at gunpoint led police to the suspect. They say Dennis Cook is a time bomb waiting to go off. He's spent time in jail and in mental hospitals, but officers say they've been powerless in keeping him out of trouble.
We had enough ammunition to start a war.
42-year-old Dennis Cook rambled incoherently as officers searched him for weapons. He was caught with a 12-gauge shotgun and a large number of deer slugs.
No knife, no.
Police say Cook has a legal hunting license, but he was hunting illegally in the woods between Kmart and the McGregor Business Complex on Woodman Drive. The busy roadway was blocked to traffic as officers from Mad River, Dayton, and Montgomery County searched the wooded area. They were moving cautiously because Cook had already pointed a shotgun at several citizens and a police officer.
He wouldn't drop his gun. He wouldn't drop his gun until the officers jumped him and caught him by surprise.
Cook lives on the other side of Woodman Drive at the corner of Dora and Eastman with his father. Police say Cook has been arrested at least 12 times for pointing guns at people, hunting in public places, and assault. And at one time, he was investigated for stalking a nationally known figure skater.
The indications we have at the mental health wards don't want him in there. And we have tried to work with the family to try to get him committed, but they said that they won't, even though he's their son and he's got problems, they said they're not going to take the steps to get him committed and get the proper help that he needs.
Cook is now in the Dayton City Jail, charged with criminal trespassing and aggravated menacing. He's under a $5,000 cash bond.
Thanks, Becky. You know, Ken, when citizens hear of a story like this one, their first reaction is, how can this happen?
Well, to help us answer that question, we go live to downtown Dayton, where we're joined by Robert Mullins of the Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board of Montgomery County.
Mr. Mullins, why can't a man like this, who appears to be dangerous, be taken off the streets?
It's a very difficult issue to respond to. It's something that citizens and consumers and families and professionals have been concerned about for a long time, because we're talking about taking away an individual's liberty, their right to privacy. In Ohio and in this country, that's something that we cherish for people, and patients have the right and individuals have the right to refuse treatment if they so desire. However, in Ohio, if someone meets certain criteria that's prescribed by law, they can be put into a hospital against their will and treated. So it can be done in this state and in this city.
As Becky mentioned in her report, police say this man is a walking time bomb. I know that we have to protect an individual's right, but what about society's right to be protected from people like him?
Well, I think society certainly has that right, and that's why in the Mental Health Act of 1988, the new mental health law in Ohio, there's a provision for any police officer or sheriff or psychiatrist, psychologist, and so on, who believes that an individual is mentally ill and a substantial risk to themselves or to others, that person can be taken into custody, transported to a hospital to receive treatment. And in fact, in Montgomery County, individuals who meet those definitions of being a risk to themselves can be evaluated on the scene by the pre-screening service that the board contracts with.
Okay, Mr. Mullins, thanks very much for joining us. Sounds like a very complicated issue with no easy solutions.
Thank you.
Thanks.
In other news, an accused murderer appeared in court today. 20-year-old William Cochran of Dayton is charged with aggravated murder and aggravated robbery in the death of a gasoline truck driver. Dayton Municipal Judge James Cannon set bond at $100,000 cash. Cochran stands accused of stabbing 56-year-old Lloyd Stewart as he was making a gas delivery to this service station along North Kiowee. Police say robbery was the apparent motive of the crime. It happened Tuesday morning.
Nearly 300 more troops are heading for Saudi Arabia. They're scheduled to leave Wright-Patterson Air Force Base tonight. The soldiers' families are being allowed to stay with them up until the last minute. Some of them told NewsCenter 7's Lazan Honeycutt they think that's nice, since now may be the worst time to say goodbye.
This was the last stop for nearly 300 reserve troops on their way to Saudi Arabia. They're stationed in Columbus and Illinois. They'll be working on everything from typewriters to tanks. This is the largest deployment Wright-Patterson Air Force Base has handled since the Kuwaiti invasion nearly 3 months ago. And with tensions running high in the Middle East, many families weren't about to let their loved ones go without a last farewell.
You know, everybody hopes this day will never come. You don't want to see anybody go off to a situation of uncertainty.
Ronnie Copeland's the only one from Dayton in the group. He says it feels strange to actually be leaving.
I'm mentally impaired. I'm more worried about my family. My wife, she has a harder job of watching the children.
What makes leaving now even tougher on these families is a coming holiday season, knowing their loved ones will be thousands of miles from home and not knowing when they'll return.
It's especially going to be hard, not so much for me, but for my children, because they are used to having their father around.
That's why these families are thankful to be with their loved ones up until the bitter end, for a chance to steal one more hug, one more precious moment before it all becomes a memory. At Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Lazan Honeycutt, NewsCenter 7.
The troops are scheduled to leave sometime around 8:30 tonight.
23 before 6. My, are you going to be in hot water? You're going to like it, though, because it's going to be really cold outside tonight, isn't it?
I've been practicing 26.
Wow, you haven't said that for a while.
Can you say 26? And I can say it, Ken.
It's going to get that cold.
It's going to get cold. It's that feel is here, and you know what? It's not going to get any better. It'll be even colder later in the week.
Oh, my.
Isn't that exciting? Let's find out what's happening right now as we look at our Doppler radar, and we put in sky conditions around the area and temperatures. You'll be able to see cloudy is basically it, except the folks over at Indianapolis. They've already started to clear out, but we're on the chilly side. By the way, our low was 31 degrees, and that occurred at 3 o'clock this morning. We had a very warm 44 degrees at 11:30 this morning as the day's high. That's the reason why. That's the frontal system. You see, it's now well past us. It's over into the central part of Pennsylvania and continue its very rapid movement on into the east. Between now and 11 o'clock, we're saying it's going to be brisk. It will be cold. There will be clouds. And the clouds by, 10:30, 11 o'clock probably will start to break up a little bit. We're expecting a temperature reading of 36 degrees by then.
Okay, thanks, Ted. A chilly evening.
Right.
Yeah. How do you make downtown Dayton thrive? Well, that's a complex question, and the answer is not so obvious, but there are some lessons to be learned from other cities.
Today, Jim Blue travels to Indianapolis for a success story. Here is the final segment of Downtown Dayton. Money well spent?
They used to call it India No Place, a boring backwater in a flat rural state. But look at Indianapolis now.
We got sweatshirts and T-shirts and ornaments. And
people here line up to buy shirts emblazoned with a slogan, Celebrate Downtown. Why would you buy a shirt that says Celebrate Downtown on it?
Because we're proud of downtown.
Why?
Well, it's really growing a lot, and all the stores are adding and stuff. It's a neat place to work.
I think we've got a real nice downtown. It's well planned and growing the way it should.
What did Indianapolis do right? At a time when other Midwestern cities are stagnating, this downtown glitters, it bustles, it's filled with people. Well, for one thing, the city leaders here came up with a central plan.
The plan took years to develop, and the process is still underway.
One of the things that makes Indianapolis unique is that they've reached out into the community and brought people into the decision-making process in its earliest stages, which means that a lot of people out there in the community buy into the ideas.
2 decades ago, Indianapolis and surrounding Marion County made the forward-thinking decision to combine their resources into a UniGov. And today, the citizens are reaping the benefits.
We've got a unique situation with our UniGov in that our city and our county are a combined government, so we only have one set of decision makers that affect the geographic area that we're trying to build.
Back in Dayton, Chamber President Tom Heine says we can learn from other cities.
Yeah, the lesson in Indianapolis was they did something smart there. Also, they did create a plan. I think there are some lessons to be learned, and I think Dayton's approaching it right with the idea of a downtown partnership to really decide what ought to be here.
But other city leaders, Commissioner Tony Capizzi, for example, look out their windows and question the future of efforts like The Landing, a riverfront residential project.
So I still look out there and say there's $3 million of city money that I don't know if was wisely spent.
And that question can only be answered by the citizens of Dayton. Jim Blue, NewsCenter 7.
Community leaders recently embarked on a planning process called Challenge 95. Its impact on downtown development will take several years.
Before you get another X-ray, you may want to pay attention to our Health Center report just ahead.
Also ahead, we'll show you why some movies and TV shows may have to change their filming locations.
Stay with us. A militant Jewish leader is laid to rest amid violence, and the nation is losing its first drug czar. Details in your first look at the world. The White House confirms President Bush's drug policy chief, William Bennett, is quitting. Spokesman Marlon Fitzwater won't give a reason for the resignation, but he denies it has anything to do with reported threats against Bennett and his family. Jewish Defense League founder Meir Kahane, gunned down in New York Monday, has been buried in Israel amid chants of death to Arabs. The suspected gunman is an Egyptian immigrant. Some members of the funeral procession smashed windows and chased Arabs during today's march in Jerusalem. Firefighters in California have put out a huge fire on a backlot at Universal Studios. Hundreds of employees had to be evacuated. The blaze damaged at least 5 buildings. It broke out on a soundstage at one of the major attractions. No cause has been determined. And it's back to work for full-fledged lawyer John F. Kennedy Jr. The late president's only son just passed the New York State bar exam on his 3rd try. Kennedy is keeping his job as an assistant to Manhattan's district attorney. And that's your first look at the world.
Studies say that each year in this country, anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 deaths are related to X-ray overexposure. Medical reporter Linda Robertson says the next time you go to the doctor's office, you may want to check if the X-ray technician is qualified.
If you've gotten an X-ray lately, chances are the person operating the equipment has had no special training and no credentials to prove that they know what they're doing. The way Ohio law stands now, according to some radiologists, is that you could be working in McDonald's one day and operating X-ray machines the next. Angie Arnold is an X-ray technologist at Good Samaritan Hospital. She is one of thousands of X-ray technicians in the state, but she is in the minority of those who have had proper training for their chosen career.
They don't know what they're really doing in terms of the exposure, so the patient is at risk as well as the operator.
Moore says many X-ray technicians who work in private practices away from supervised areas such as hospitals or where there is a radiologist expert may be overexposing their patients.
Consequences of exposure include like leukemia, cataracts. There are certain chromosome changes that can occur.
State Representative Mark Guthrie says that 40% of Ohio's radiologists are untrained. He's sponsoring a bill that would change that.
We have a statute that requires that the equipment itself be licensed and monitored. At the same time, we have no statute that requires that the people that operate that equipment that are responsible for the safety of those that they're exposing to the radiation be trained in any way.
The Ohio Society of Radiologic Technologists will hold its annual state conference in Dayton starting Thursday night and running through the weekend. 12,000 radiologists from all over the state are expected to attend to continue their education. From Health Center 7, I'm Linda Robertson.
We're glad you're with us. Stick around. There is more. How about some sports? Tonight in your first look, a profile of one of the most explosive quarterbacks and powerful teams in the state. Can anyone stop St. Henry?
And in our review of news from around the valley, an update on a pit bull attack that occurred last September in Xenia.
Our Wednesday report continues after this break.
11 till 6 now, time for sports. An area high school is aiming for the title of state champion in football.
And one of the Big Ten's football programs is in trouble. Mike Hartsock has details in your first look at sports. Good evening, Mike.
Good evening, Ken. Actually, it's the Illinois basketball program that got the bad news today. 3 years of probation from the NCAA, including no postseason play next year and cuts in the number of scholarships. You'll remember the Illini lost to Dayton in the NCAA tournament last March. Losing is something they don't know much about up in St. Henry. The Redskins are defending small school state basketball champs, and John Condit says they could add another state title later this month.
This is probably the best football team in St. Henry history. 11-0, number 1 in the state for Division 5, and led by one of the best quarterbacks in all of high school football.
There's no doubt in my mind. I think Bob Hoying could play anywhere in the country right now. I really do.
Bob Hoying can do it all. The 6'5", 210-pound quarterback is 122 for 205 through the air this year for 1,984 yards and 22 touchdowns.
We've had a lot of good teams in the past, and we just haven't got the chance to go on. And it seems like this year it's all come together. We worked hard, real hard over the summer, and I think that has a lot to do with it.
Now, Hoying comes from a great sports family. His grandpa is Wally Post, the former Red. They've named a complex up in St. Henry after Wally Post.
I didn't know him. I think he died when I was 8, and I got to know him a little bit, and I still remember him. But it's great having him as my grandpa.
His primary receiver is senior Scott Brunswick, who caught 10 passes in the Redskins' win over Tri-County North Friday. His yearly totals are 63 grabs for 1,137 yards and 14 touchdowns. Both Brunswick and Hoying brought home the basketball state crown last March for the Redskins.
As athletes, it made us, realize that the talent that we have, and we could use this on the football field too.
They talked about it a little bit, guys, let's get together and let's get that state football championship, and we took the first step in the right direction tonight.
I'm John Condit, covering the playoffs for Touchdown 7.
The Dayton Flyers land another big basketball talent. That story and more of our Touchdown 7 football previews coming up at 6 o'clock. I'll see you then.
Okay, Mike, thank you. In Xenia, charges have been dropped against a woman involved in a pit bull attack earlier this fall. That story tops the list in tonight's review of the news around the valley. She was caring for a pit bull terrier when it attacked a 12-year-old Xenia girl last September. And now the city prosecutor says Kathy Puckett was not responsible for the attack. Charges against her have been dropped. The pit bull, meanwhile, remains in isolation, and felony charges are pending against the dog's owner. The UAW and a division of B.F. Goodrich is taking an active role in getting servicemen in Southeast Asia home. It's estimated 2,000 personnel are still in Southeast Asia, listed as POW or simply missing in action. Today, the Miami County Veterans Council presented the B.F. Goodrich plant the POW MIA flag. And finally, honors today for the Piqua Post of the State Highway Patrol. Trooper Dan Hubler of Sydney was awarded Trooper of the Year award at the Piqua Post, while dispatcher Marshall Carey of Bradford received the Telecommunications Post. Both were selected by their colleagues based on job performance. And that is your first look around the valley. And those two people are now up for statewide awards.
Yeah, how nice.
Yes.
Well, Jim and Deborah are standing by in the newsroom. They're next at 6. I take it not everyone is happy about last night's election.
Boy, you got that right, Cheryl. Xenia students angry over the failed levy took to the streets today. We're going to show you what happened when they walked out of school.
And George Voinovich and Mike DeWine are now preparing for their move to Columbus. We'll take a look at the day after and some statewide and local issues.
Attorneys for the man accused in the 1988 murder of Arby's manager Paula Fox are now trying to keep certain evidence out of court.
And we'll show you how one Troy woman got ready for winter with a little help from her friends. These stories and more just about 10 minutes from now.
The First Edition weather is brought to you by Fulmer Supermarkets and by McDonald's Restaurants.
Well, Ted's back with us now to give us the lowdown on the temperature. If I'm not mistaken, this would be the first time this season that we're below 30.
Yeah, we had been predicting 28 a week or so ago, but this is our coldest spell that is coming up. You're right, Dan. You said low down, and you were right, because we're talking about the low being down from where we normally like to see it. Here's our tower cam picture, and as you can see, the darkness and the lights twinkling throughout Dayton already. Here's our Doppler radar, let's put in temperature sky conditions across the country. You'll be able to see along with us, partly cloudy to cloudy, but over in Indianapolis it cleared out already as that cold front has worked its way well on to the east. We move from that to try and show you what is happening with our weather. There's that cold front. You can see it's in central Pennsylvania already, taking with it the precipitation. There had been some showers, some snow showers, all well to the north of us. The high pressure area, this appears to be a stronger high, a bigger high than the one we had just the other day, so that this should clear things out. Tomorrow we should have a great deal of sunshine, although it's still going to be below normal. Want to keep our eye on down here. This could have some effect on us perhaps a little bit later on in the week. In the meantime, moving from our map to the forecast for us here this evening, brisk conditions. It'll be cold. There'll be clouds. They'll start to break out late in the evening. About a 36-degree temperature reading by 11 o'clock. Now, overnight, it's going to be partly cloudy, and it will be cold and will be down to 26 degrees. Tomorrow, however, things will start to perk up a little bit. As we're saying, it's going to be partly to mostly sunny skies, but still chilly. 46 for our high. Our normal high for this time of the year is about 55 degrees. Again, tonight, we are just amazed at the tremendous talent that is shown to us by Ken's dog, Jackson. He posed as a horse here in Happy, Texas. Before we leave, I want to remind also everybody that the hazardous waste is the pickup is this Saturday at the Montgomery County South Incinerator between the hours of 9 and 3. Keep it in mind.
Great idea. Did you ever have a beard, Ted?
No.
Did you?
Once.
One time. Well, most men have never thought of having a beard like Steve Conlon's. Take a look at this. He has a beard made up of some 4,000 bees. Some people will do anything for a gimmick, and this is Steve and Ellie Conlon's gimmick to draw attention to their honeybee business. Maybe a sweet idea, but you wouldn't want to be around when he lathers up for his morning shave now, would you?
No. Funny you should mention. The only beard I ever had was a bee beard. So anyway, done in Lebanon. We're almost finished with tonight's first edition. Join Jim Baldridge and Deborah Countess in a few moments for our 6 o'clock report.
Stay with us.